His broken ship plummeted to her world. Now she'll spill the blood of anyone who tries to claim him. The first indication that Dominic Hayes was going to die came as a low-frequency hum that vibrated through his jaw. He'd felt it before, twice, that specific resonance that meant his freighter's magnetic shielding had collapsed and the hull was about to start peeling apart. The ion storm had materialized without warning, turning his sensor array into static and his navigation into prayer. Now the Persephone screamed through Varathos Prime's upper atmosphere at an angle that would have been suicide even with working thrusters. "Come on," Dominic muttered, wrestling the control yoke as the ship bucked. Sweat stung his eyes. The cockpit stank of burning insulation. Through the viewport, the moon's surface resolved from abstract green to distinct jungle canopy, coming up fast enough that his stomach climbed into his throat. The Persephone hit the tree line doing 300 kilometers per hour. Impact threw Dominic against his restraints hard enough that white light bloomed behind his eyes. Metal shrieked. Something in the cargo bay exploded with a muffled thump. The ship tore through vegetation and earth, carving a trench that ended when the bow crumpled against stone. His head bounced off the console, and the world went soft around the edges. He tasted copper. His left shoulder felt wrong, grinding when he moved. Emergency lighting bathed everything in pulsing red, and somewhere an alarm screamed in a pitch designed to keep pilots conscious. It was working, but Dominic wasn't sure that was a kindness. The cargo, he had to check the cargo. Dominic fumbled with his restraints, finally releasing the buckle. He half fell from the pilot's seat, catching himself with his good arm. The corridor to the cargo bay had buckled, ceiling panels hanging loose, but he squeezed through sparking wires and thickening smoke. The medical supplies were intact. The crash webbing had held, refrigeration units humming steady, 3 months' worth of antivirals and antibiotics that would keep 2,000 colonists from dying of a plague. Earth-based immune systems had never evolved to fight. Dr. Singh would get her supplies. Dominic allowed himself 3 seconds of relief before the sound reached him. Footsteps outside the hull, deliberate, methodical, not settling wreckage, not wind. He'd crashed on a moon that was supposed to be uninhabited, far enough from Kainari settlements that they wouldn't notice one human freighter. Apparently someone had noticed. Dominic grabbed the emergency locker's plasma cutter. Not a weapon, really, but it would burn through flesh as easily as steel. The footsteps stopped just outside the hull breach. 5 heartbeats of silence. Then a shadow moved across the opening, backlit by twin suns. She was tall, easily 6.5 feet, built like a predator. Lean muscle and coiled strength that radiated threat even standing still. Her skin was cobalt blue, darkening to navy in patterns like earth tigers, and her face blended human and feline in ways his brain couldn't reconcile. High cheekbones, sharp jaw, large eyes the color of molten amber that tracked across the cargo bay with mechanical precision. She was the most beautiful thing he'd ever seen, and she was absolutely going to kill him. The weapon in her hand looked like a sharpened crescent moon, its surface etched with symbols that caught the emergency lighting. She held it with casual confidence. Dominic raised the plasma cutter. His hand didn't shake. She cocked her head, ears swiveling forward, and spoke in a language that sounded like water over stones. When he didn't respond, her eyes narrowed and her tail lashed once. She switched languages. "Standard," she said, accent turning familiar words exotic. "You speak standard human?" "Yeah." "Good." She stepped forward, weapon steady. "You will explain why you trespass on ascendancy territory. You will explain what you carry. You will explain why I should not kill you for bleeding on sacred ground." Sacred ground, of course. "Medical supplies," he said, keeping his voice level. "Running cargo to a human colony. They've got a plague. People are dying. I'm trying to help them." Her amber eyes tracked to the sealed containers, then back to his face. She was reading him, watching for deception. "You lie," she said. "I don't. Humans always lie." She moved closer. "You come to steal, to claim, to take what is not yours." Dominic's shoulders screamed white-hot pain. Blood ran down his arms, soaking his flight suit. His vision swam, concussion, probably. "Look," he said. I don't give a damn about your territory or whatever political bullshit is happening between our species. I've got 2,000 colonists who die if I don't deliver these supplies in 72 hours. Kill me if it makes you feel better about your honor, but those people still die. Their blood's on your hands." He knew it was a mistake the second the words left his mouth. Her pupils contracted to vertical slits and her ears flattened. She closed the distance in 2 strides, blade edge against his throat. The metal was cold. He felt his pulse hammering against it. "You dare," she whispered, something beyond anger in her voice. "You dare speak to me of blood and honor when you know nothing of either." Dominic met her eyes. Up close, he saw flecks of gold in the amber, saw the black markings on her face shift with her expression. She smelled like ozone and crushed leaves after rain. "Then teach me," he said. Neither moved. He watched her think, saw calculation happen behind those alien eyes. Then, slowly, she lowered the blade. Not completely, just enough that he could breathe without feeling the edge. "You are injured," she said. "I'll live." Perhaps. She studied him with intensity that made him feel transparent. Or perhaps not. You cannot walk far. You cannot defend yourself. You are prey, human, and this jungle has many hunters. So kill me and get it over with. Her tail lashed sharper, ears twitching in patterns he couldn't read. Then she stepped back, lowering her weapon completely, and spoke words in her own language with the cadence of ritual. "I invoke the claim," she said in standard, voice carrying weight. "You are under my protection until your debt is paid or released. Your life is mine to guard. Your death is mine to grant. Any who would take you from me must go through me first." Dominic stared. "What does that mean?" "It means," she said, something like amusement flickering across her face, "that you are my responsibility now, and I do not allow my responsibilities to die easily." She sheathed her weapon and held out one clawed hand. Dominic looked at her, and realized he'd just stopped having a very bad day and started having a very complicated one. He took her hand. Her grip was warm, strong enough to crush bone, but controlled. Her claws barely pressed his skin. "Saren," she said. "Dominic." Her ears flicked forward. She pulled him to his feet with ease that reminded him exactly how outmatched he was. "Come, Dominic," she said, already moving toward the breach. "We have much ground to cover before nightfall, and you bleed too freely for my comfort." He followed because there wasn't another option, and because something in the way she'd looked at him, like he was a puzzle she hadn't expected, made him think this wasn't going to end the way he'd expected. The jungle swallowed them both. Saren moved through the jungle like she was part of it, silent, fluid, every step deliberate. Dominic crashed through it like wreckage, snapping branches and stumbling over roots his human eyes couldn't track in fading light. His shoulder screamed with each movement. She stopped so abruptly he nearly collided with her. Her ears swiveled, tracking something he couldn't hear, tail rigid. After a moment she relaxed and continued forward. "How much farther?" Dominic kept his voice low. "Far enough that your scent will not lead hunters to us." She didn't look back. "Close enough that you will not collapse first." Her tail flicked, amusement or irritation, he couldn't tell yet. The cave system had a single defensible entrance and multiple passages branching into darkness. Saren moved through the space checking exits, setting small bioluminescent devices at key points. Perimeter alarms. "Sit," she said, pointing to flat stone near where their fire would be. Dominic sat gratefully. Saren crouched beside him with a kit that unfolded into something between medic's bag and field surgery station. She cut away his blood-soaked sleeve, examining the damage with clinical precision. "This will hurt," she said. "Everything already hurts." She pressed something against his shoulder that felt like ice and fire arguing under his skin. Dominic hissed, but didn't pull away. Her fingers were careful despite the claws. He studied her face as she worked, the way her ears tilted back when she concentrated, the slight furrow between her eyes, blue patterns along her arms that shifted subtly in dim light. "Why did you do it?" he asked. "Do what?" "Claim me. Killing me would have been easier." Her hands paused fractionally. Easier is not always correct. "That's not an answer." "No," she agreed. She finished binding his shoulder and examined the cut on his forehead, tilting his face toward her with one hand under his jaw. Her touch was warmer than expected. Her eyes were impossibly close, amber-lit from within. "You spoke of blood and honor," she said quietly, "as if they mattered. This is rare among your kind." "You don't know much about my kind." "I know enough." She applied something that stung, sealing the wound. "I know humans take without asking. View other species as resources. Break treaties as easily as they make them. Sounds like you've got us figured out. And yet," she released his face and sat back, "you crashed rather than abandon cargo meant to save lives. You challenged me despite barely knowing how to use your weapon. You spoke truth when lies would have served you better." "Maybe I'm just bad at being human." Her ears flicked forward, expression almost curious. "Perhaps that is why I find you interesting." She moved to start a fire, arranging stones and kindling with practiced efficiency. Within minutes, flames cast dancing shadows, and the temperature climbed from cold to merely cool. Dominic watched her settle across from him, posture relaxed but somehow still ready. Everything about her suggested coiled potential. "Tell me about the claim," he said. "Old law, older than the ascendancy." She stared into flames. "When a warrior finds something of value, they may invoke the claim. It binds them to protect what they claimed until the debt is satisfied." "What debt?" "That depends." Her eyes met his. "You owe me your life. How you repay that is for us to determine." "And if I can't?" "Then you remain mine until you can, or until one of us dies." Dominic absorbed that. "Your people must love you right now." Her tail lashed sharp. "My people do not factor into this decision." "They will when they find out." Saren's silence was answer enough. They sat without speaking, fire crackling between them. Dominic's body registered the full catalog of damage, bruises on bruises, exhaustion pulling at his bones, but his mind wouldn't settle. "Why Verathos Prime?" Saren asked suddenly. "Your colony is in the outer reach. This moon is not on any direct route." "It is if you're avoiding corporate patrols," Dominic said. "The medical supplies aren't exactly legal everywhere. Patent laws, trade restrictions, corporate bullshit designed to maximize profit while people die." "So you are a smuggler?" "I'm a pilot doing what needs doing." He met her eyes. "Sometimes those are the same thing." She studied him with that unnerving intensity. "You risk much for strangers." "They're not strangers." Dominic's voice came out rough. 3 years ago, my sister was on a colony ship hit with a virus. The corporate owners decided it was cheaper to quarantine and let everyone die than manufacture a cure." Saren's ears flattened, pupils narrowing. "She was 19. Brilliant, excited about new worlds. I was supposed to meet her at the colony." He stared into flames. "Instead, I got a notification that her ship had been declared a biological hazard and jettisoned into a star." "Your laws allowed this?" "Corporate law supersedes a lot when you're far from Earth." He watched shadows dance. "So I run medical supplies to colonies that need them. Break patents and restrictions. Because if there's one person who doesn't have to watch someone they love die because some executive calculated lives are worth less than profits, it's worth it." Silence stretched between them, different now. When Saren spoke, her voice had lost its edge. "I understand this. Loss that shapes purpose." Her claws flexed against her thighs. "My mother died defending our clan from human raiders when I was young. She taught me that strength without purpose is merely violence, that a warrior who cannot choose what they fight for is simply a weapon wielded by others." "Sounds like a smart woman." "She was the strongest warrior I have known." Saren's eyes reflected firelight. "She would have disapproved of my choice today." "To claim me?" "To claim anyone. Kainari culture values independence above all. To tie yourself to another's survival is seen as weakness, an admission you cannot stand alone." "That's lonely. It is our way. Doesn't mean it's the only way." Her ears moved through complex gestures he couldn't decipher. "You presume much for someone who has known our culture for hours." "I presume that any culture mistaking connection for weakness is missing something important." Dominic shifted, trying to ease his shoulder. "Humans are social creatures. We need each other. That's not weakness, it's how we survived as prey animals. And now you dominate your world. We destroyed it mostly, but yeah, we're persistent. He smiled without humor. Whether that makes us apex predators or parasites is up for debate. Siren made a sound like a huff. You speak of your species with no affection. I speak honestly, we're capable of incredible things, art, science, compassion across species, also horrifying cruelty and stupidity, sometimes in the same person. He met her eyes. I imagine your people are similar. We do not claim to be what we are not. We are warriors. We hunt, fight, conquer. We do not pretend otherwise. And you don't feel anything else? No curiosity, no desire beyond the next fight? Her tail went still. What I feel is irrelevant to what I am. I don't think you believe that. You do not know what I believe. No, but I'm starting to sense what you're afraid of. Siren stood in one fluid motion, posture radiating warning. You overstep. Probably. He didn't look away. But you didn't invoke the claim because I'm valuable cargo. You did it because something made you curious enough to break your own rules, and that scares you. They stared at each other across flames. Instead of drawing her weapon, she turned and walked to the cave entrance, back rigid. Sleep, she said without turning. We move at first light. Daylight will bring worse than wildlife. Worse how? Those among my people who will see your presence as insult demanding blood payment, and humans who will see your cargo as profit worth killing for. She glanced back, eyes catching firelight. Mercenaries landed 3 hours after you crashed. I watched their ships while tracking your wreckage. They search methodically. By tomorrow, they will find this location. Dominic nodded, exhaustion overwhelming curiosity. He stretched out on cave floor, using his good arm as pillow. He watched Siren take position at the entrance, weapon across her lap, completely still except for subtle ear movements tracking sounds he couldn't hear. Siren, he said quietly. Yes, thank you for the claim for not killing me. She didn't respond immediately. When she did, her voice was softer. Sleep, Dominic. We will speak more of debts when you are not bleeding. He closed his eyes. Despite stone beneath him and pain radiating from a dozen injuries, sleep came quickly. His last thought was that he'd never felt safer than he did now, in a cave on an alien moon, protected by a warrior who'd had every reason to kill him and chose not to. The jungle sang nighttime songs, and Siren kept watch, amber eyes never leaving the darkness beyond the fire's reach. Dawn broke through the canopy in shafts of amber light that turned the jungle into something from a dream. Dominic woke to find Siren exactly where she'd been when he fell asleep. A statue carved from cobalt and determination, eyes fixed on the entrance. Did you sleep at all? He asked, voice rough. I do not require as much rest as humans. She stood, stretching in a way that was entirely feline, vertebrae popping. We must move. The mercenaries will have begun their search pattern at first light. Dominic's body argued against movement, but he pushed to his feet anyway. His shoulder had stiffened overnight into something that barely functioned, and his head still pounded. Siren watched him struggle with what might have been concern or simple tactical assessment. You are slower today, she observed. I'm also still alive, which seems like a win. Her ears flicked forward. Your humor is strange. You should hear my jokes when I'm not concussed. They moved through the jungle with Siren setting a pace that pushed Dominic's limits without breaking him. She checked her perimeter alarms as they went, small devices that pulsed once before going dark, covering their trail. The morning heat climbed fast, humidity thick enough to taste. Dominic's flight suit was soaked through within an hour. Siren moved as if the temperature didn't touch her, though he noticed her tongue darting out occasionally to wet her lips. A cooling mechanism, maybe. They'd been traveling for 3 hours when Siren froze mid-step, ears swiveling backward. Her hand shot out, pressing Dominic against a massive tree trunk. She held one clawed finger to her lips, then pointed. Through the vegetation, Dominic caught movement, figures in tactical gear, moving in formation, 5 of them weapons up, scanning, Captain Grant's mercenaries. Siren's other hand had found her weapon, drawing it with silent precision. Her body was coiled tight against his, and Dominic could feel the tension thrumming through her muscles. He barely dared breathe. The mercenaries passed within 30 meters, voices carrying through humid air. "Command says the cargo's worth $5 million if we recover it intact," one said. "More if we can grab the pilot alive. Helix wants to know who he's working for." "Forget the pilot, just find the ship." Their voices faded into jungle noise. Siren held position for another full minute before relaxing fractionally. "They are between us and your crash site," she said quietly. "We cannot retrieve your cargo while they hold that position." "So we wait them out?" "No," her eyes met his. "We continue to the sacred ruins. There is something you must see." The ruins emerged from jungle like bones breaking through skin, ancient stone structures consumed by vegetation but still recognizable as deliberate architecture. Columns carved with symbols Dominic couldn't read, platforms that suggested ritual purpose. And everywhere, the sense of age so profound it pressed against his chest. Siren moved through the space differently here, slower, her tail low, ears back. Not fear, reverence maybe, or grief. "This is where your mother died," Dominic said. She stopped back to him. "How did you know?" "The way you're moving, like the ground itself remembers." Siren was silent for a long moment. When she spoke, her voice carried weight. "She held this place against 20 raiders for 6 hours, long enough for our clan to evacuate the young. She knew she would not survive. She chose it anyway." "I'm sorry." "Do not be." Siren turned to face him. "She died as she lived, with purpose and honor. It is the death every Kinari hopes for." Her claws traced patterns on a nearby column. "But I was young when I lost her. I did not understand then that strength could look like sacrifice. I thought it only looked like victory." Dominic moved closer, careful not to crowd her. "And now?" "Now I wonder if I have spent years winning battles while losing everything that matters." Her amber eyes found his. "Your species fascinates me, Dominic. You are weak in body compared to mine, yet you accomplish things through connection that we never could alone. You love fiercely enough to break laws and risk death. We are taught such attachment is vulnerability." "It is vulnerable," Dominic said, "but that doesn't make it weakness." Something moved in the shadows behind a collapsed archway. Both of them turned as figures emerged. 7 Kainari warriors, armor gleaming, weapons drawn. Leading them was a male who stood even taller than Siren, his charcoal fur marked with silver, scarred face cold as stone. "Siren," he said, voice like gravel, "you have made a poor choice." "Ravik." Siren's weapon was already in her hand, positioning herself between Dominic and the warriors. "This is none of your concern." "You invoke ancient law to protect an alien on sacred ground where your mother's blood was spilled." Ravik's lips pulled back, showing fangs. "You dishonor her memory and our people with this action." "I honor the law as written. He is under my protection." "A law written before we understood how poisonous alien influence could be." Ravik began to circle, the other warriors spreading out. "You were always too curious, Siren, too willing to question tradition. Your mother worried you would stray from the path." Dominic saw Siren's ears flatten. "Do not speak of my mother." "Why? Because you know she would be ashamed?" Ravik's tail lashed. "I invoke the right of combat. Either surrender the human to ascendancy justice or defend your claim with your life." The challenge hung in humid air. Dominic stepped forward, but Siren's arm shot out, blocking him. "Siren, you don't have to." "Yes," she said quietly. "I do. This is Kainari law. This is how we settle disputes when words fail." She glanced at him, something fierce and fragile in her expression. "Do not interfere, no matter what happens." "I can't just watch you fight alone." "You must." She turned back to Ravik, raising her weapon. "I accept your challenge." The fight was brutal poetry. Ravik moved with power and experience, every strike calculated to kill. Siren moved with grace and precision, turning his strength against him, using speed where he used force. Their weapons sang through air, the sound of energized metal against metal, making Dominic's teeth ache. Blood appeared on Siren's shoulder, then on Ravik's thigh. They circled each other like planets locked in orbit, neither giving ground. Ravik feinted left and struck right, his blade opening a gash along Siren's ribs. She hissed but didn't retreat, using the opening he'd created to drive her own weapon toward his throat. He blocked at the last second, the impact sending both staggering back. "You are strong," Ravik acknowledged, breathing hard. "But you fight for the wrong thing. Your attachment to the human makes you weak." "No," Saren said, blood running down her side. "It makes me certain." She attacked with renewed intensity, pressing Ravik back toward the ruins. Dominic could see the calculation in her movements. She was hurting him, using the terrain, forcing him onto uneven ground. When Ravik stumbled on broken stone, Saren was there, weapon at his throat, knee on his chest. "Yield," she commanded. Ravik's eyes burned with hatred. "Kill me. Prove your claim has made you strong enough." For a heartbeat, Dominic thought she would. Her blade pressed hard enough to draw blood. Then she stepped back, lowering her weapon. "I do not need to prove anything to you," she said. "You are defeated. That is enough." The watching warriors shifted, uncertain. In Kainari culture, Dominic guessed, mercy was unexpected, possibly insulting. Ravik rose slowly, his expression unreadable. "You spare me." "I spare you. This is weakness." He spat blood. "You will regret this choice, Saren. When the human betrays you, when his kind comes for what you have protected, you will remember this moment and know I was right." He gestured to the other warriors. They melted back into jungle, leaving Saren standing alone in the ruins where her mother died, blood dripping from her wounds. Dominic moved to her immediately, catching her arm as she swayed. "You're hurt." "I am alive, that is sufficient." But she leaned into him slightly, and he could feel her trembling with exhaustion and adrenaline crash. "We need to treat those wounds." "Later. First we must move. Ravik will return with more warriors, and next time I will not be allowed to simply defeat him in combat." Her eyes found his, intense and searching. "I am exiled now, Dominic. I have nowhere to return. My clan will not accept me. My honor is bound to you alone." The weight of that settled on Dominic's chest. "I'm sorry." "Do not be." She straightened, pulling away from his support despite obvious pain. "I made this choice freely. I would make it again." "Why?" "Because something about you demanded it." Her hand found his face, thumb tracing his cheekbone in a gesture so tender it stole his breath. "Because when you spoke of your sister and your purpose, I saw what my people have forgotten. That the strongest bonds are chosen, not commanded. That love is not vulnerability, but the courage to protect what matters, even when the world demands you stand alone." Dominic covered her hand with his. "What happens now?" "Now we retrieve your cargo before the mercenaries can take it. We complete your mission." Saren's expression hardened with determination. "And then we decide together what comes after." "Together," Dominic repeated. Yes, her ears flicked forward, some private decision made. Together. They left the ruins behind, moving deeper into jungle toward the crash site and the confrontation waiting there. Dominic's shoulder still screamed. Saren bled from a dozen wounds, and somewhere behind them an army of warriors and mercenaries hunted them both. But when Saren's hand found his in the shadows between trees, fingers intertwining, claws careful against his skin, Dominic realized that for the first time in 3 years, he wasn't carrying his burden alone. Whatever came next, they would face it together. They reached the crash site as twin suns climbed toward zenith. Dominic crouched beside Saren behind a fallen log, watching mercenaries move through the wreckage. Captain Grant stood near the Persephone's torn hull, directing operations. 8 visible, Saren whispered. "At least 2 inside, poor odds. They usually are." Dominic studied positions and sight lines. "I need to get inside. Emergency purge will eject the medical cargo before they can lock it down." "And the weapons?" "Go with the ship when I trigger self-destruct." He glanced at her. "But I need time. Someone has to keep them busy." Saren's tail curled. "You want a diversion." "I want you alive, but yeah." "Then we move together." Her hand found his, squeezing once. "I draw them away. You slip inside. We meet at the old trading post 3 kilometers north. 2 hours. If either fails to arrive, the other continues alone." "I'm not leaving you. And I am not watching you die from poor planning." Her eyes met his. "Trust me to do what I do best." He wanted to argue. She was right. 2 hours. Saren drew her weapon, the blade humming to life. "When you hear fighting, move fast. And Dominic, Do not die. I have invested considerable effort keeping you alive. Same to you. She smiled, quick and sharp, then disappeared into jungle. Dominic counted heartbeats, then Saren's war cry split the air and chaos erupted. She hit them from the east, blade singing, moving too fast to track. One went down immediately. 2 more scattered. Grant's voice cut through confusion, organizing defense. Dominic ran. He slid through the hull breach into the cargo bay. Inside smelled like burned circuitry. Emergency lighting pulsed red. 2 mercenaries guarded the medical containers. His plasma cutter was still in the emergency locker. He pulled it free, swung around the bulkhead. Hey! They turned. He fired twice. They dropped. Dominic moved to the control panel, fingers flying across emergency interface. The purge system was designed for contamination, eject cargo, seal ship, trigger self-destruct. He just had to convince the Persephone she was compromised. Outside, weapons fire echoed. Saren's voice raised in challenge, then cut off. Dominic's hands shook. He forced them steady. She could handle herself. The panel blinked green, purge initiated. Cargo ejection in 90 seconds, self-destruct in 5 minutes. He should run. But Saren's voice had stopped, and that silence pulled at him like gravity. Dominic grabbed the cutter and ran for the exit. He emerged into smoke and chaos. Medical containers were ejecting, mechanical arms throwing them clear. Mercenaries scrambled. Siren was backed against the hull, 3 mercenaries closing in. Blood matted her fur, her weapon was gone, 1 arm pressed against her ribs. She'd given him time, and now she was trapped. Grant stood behind her troops, weapon aimed at Saren's head. Enough, the captain said. Stand down or I put her down. Dominic stepped into the open, cutter raised, let her go. Grant's eyes found him, calculating. Mr. Hayes, surrender peacefully and we discuss compensation. Fight, and I put a round through your alien skull. She's not my pet. Then you won't mind if I kill her. You've got 4 minutes before this ship turns you into vapor. Dominic gestured at the Persephone. I triggered self-destruct. Your choice. Spend those minutes fighting or running. Grant's expression didn't change. You're bluffing. Ask yourself if you want to bet on that. The ship groaned, deep and metallic. 1 mercenary shifted nervously. Captain, we should... Quiet. Grant's weapon never wavered. Jenkins, secure the cargo. Morrison, grab the pilot. Kill the alien. The mercenaries moved. Siren launched herself at the nearest one despite injuries, catching him off guard. Dominic fired at Morrison, forcing him to cover. Then someone hit him from behind and his cutter went flying. He hit ground hard, shoulder screaming. Someone pinned him. Through chaos, he saw Siren fighting desperately, taking wounds but giving worse. The Persephone groaned louder, metal shrieking. Dominic drove his elbow back, felt his attacker's grip loosen. He rolled, grabbed debris, swung hard, connected with skull. The mercenary dropped. Grant had her weapon on Siren now, clear shot, finger tightening. Dominic didn't think. He threw himself between them as Grant fired. The round caught him in the ribs, punching through with force that emptied his lungs. He went down hard, vision whiting out. Distantly, he heard Siren scream, combat intensifying. Then Siren was there, pulling him upright, her arm around his waist. Stay with me. Shot, he managed. I know, we run anyway. She dragged him away from the clearing, moving impossibly fast despite wounds and his dead weight. Behind them, mercenaries scattered. Grant's voice raised in fury. The Persephone exploded. The concussive wave threw them forward. Dominic lost consciousness between air and impact. When awareness returned, he was face down in mud with Siren's body covering his. Siren? She stirred, rolling off with a pained sound. Blood and dirt streaked her face, one ear torn, but her eyes were clear. You took a bullet meant for me. Seemed right. You are a fool. Her hand found the wound, pressing hard. He gasped. A brave, impossible fool, and it takes one to know one. Despite everything, she laughed, wet and painful but genuine. Perhaps we are both fools. The medical containers had landed 50 meters away, beacons blinking. The Persephone was nothing but twisted metal and fire. Can you walk? Siren asked. Can you? We will find out together. She helped him up, and they clung to each other like shipwreck survivors. His ribs burned with each breath. her blood soaked into his clothes. They stumbled toward the cargo as engine sounds approached. Dominic tensed, but Siren's ears flicked forward. Human design, not military. A battered transport descended, side door opening. Dr. Amara Singh appeared with medkit in hand. "Dominic!" She rushed forward, cataloging injuries. "We tracked your beacon. What happened?" Long story. Dominic sagged as Amara found his wound. "The cargo?" "Intact. We'll load it now." Amara's eyes moved to Siren, taking in alien physiology without flinching. "Your friend needs attention. Both of you do." "She's not my friend," Dominic said, seeing Siren's ears flatten. "She's—" "I know what I am," Siren interrupted quietly. "I am exiled. I have no clan, no people, no home." "That's not true." Dominic caught her hand, holding tight despite pain. "You have me if you want." Siren stared at him, amber eyes wide. Her tail went very still. "What are you saying?" "I'm saying I need a co-pilot, someone to watch my back, someone who understands some things are worth fighting for, even when odds are terrible." He pulled her closer, foreheads nearly touching. "I'm saying the last 3 days were the most terrifying of my life, and the first time I haven't felt alone since my sister died." She kissed him. It wasn't human kissing. Her mouth was different, her tongue rougher, but it was unmistakably intentional, full of emotion too big for words. When she pulled back, her hand cupped his face with impossible gentleness. "I choose this," she said. "I choose you, not because of the claim or debt, because you make me believe strength and vulnerability can exist together. That connection is not weakness, but the truest courage." "Is that a yes to being my co-pilot?" Her ears flicked forward. "It is a yes to everything." Amara cleared her throat. "If you two are done, I'd like to keep you from bleeding to death." They let her guide them onto the transport, let her work while crew loaded containers. As the ship lifted off, Dominic watched Verithos Prime fall away. The jungle that had nearly killed him, the ruins where Siren fought for his life, the crater where his old ship died. "Regrets?" he asked quietly. Siren leaned against him, careful of wounds, tail wrapping around his ankle. "Only that I did not meet you sooner." "We've got time now." "Yes," her hand found his, "we do." 3 weeks later, after the colony was saved and their wounds healed into scars, Dominic stood at the edge of Kainari territory with Siren beside him. She couldn't return. The exile was absolute. But as they turned away from boundary markers, heading back toward their ship, neither looked back. Home wasn't a place anymore, wasn't territory or clan or species. Home was the person who stood beside you when the world demanded you stand alone. The hand that found yours in darkness. The voice that spoke your name like a promise. As they walked toward their ship and the stars beyond, Siren's tail curled around Dominic's wrist, and he smiled despite the scars that would always mark where they'd fought for this future. They had earned each other. That was enough.